Welcome to episode 62 of the XRM Toolcast. In this episode, Scott and I speak with Alison Mulligan on career tips and tricks. Alison shares her tips on how to get started in Dynamics Power Platform, how to ask for a raise the right way, and how to change roles within your career. So if you're hoping for a non-technical, jargon-free episode, this is the episode for you. Sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the XRM Toolcast. With me, your host, Daryl, always raising the bar, and my co-host, Scott. If you only had broken your left arm, then you would have been all right, Daryl. Scott, how's it going?
Good, thanks, Daryl. Yes, and as you alluded to, I could be. If I had broken my arm, then literally, my left would have been a lot easier. It's but I'm making lots of good of accessibility tools and things like that. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see the huge, great cast that I have on my. I mean, it's almost like a comedy cast. You know, they're putting on. They're like, go on, make it a bit bigger. Go on, make it a bit funnier if you make it a bit bigger.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it's amazing that you had to brag about the size of your cast. I think.
Yeah, well, anyway, I was hiking and I fell off a bridge. It was a narrow bridge. That's my excuse. It was very wet, and it kind of. Next thing I know, I was in a creek and looking down at my arm, and it was clearly bent in a way that really should not be bent. So I got lots. You
need a better story.
Yeah, I suppose we could come up with a story. Yeah, maybe if anyone wants to email us with a better story.
I broke my arm in like 7th grade. I don't know if we can still see the scars here. So there's that, but that's one scar there, and I got one scar there. 2 plates, 7 screws, both in and out. But so I didn't ride my bike by my house, which is like the dumbest story. I was riding my bike and I flipped over the handlebars and like that, poof, both bones through the skin. And so, but my story was I was bungee jumping in Mexico and the cord snapped and I fell down a river and that was the story.
Does anyone actually believe that story though?
Yes, I had about 25%, about a quarter of the people would actually be gullible enough to believe that I was bungee jumping in Mexico, and they'd go on about how the regulations weren't very good in Mexico and I shouldn't have done that. And I'm like, oh, I know that now, and it was
maybe my story could be I was bungee jumping with Daryl in Mexico.
Maybe or at Summit because we were there. Yeah. People know we were there.
Tandem bungee jump. Tandem bungee jump. A friend of mine had skin cancer. Oh, nice. Oh, well, I wish I had. I'm not. I feel like I've let the side down. A friend of mine had skin cancer, and she had a good chunk taken out of her leg. And she doesn't like telling people she had cancer because everybody does that thing, like, when she says that.
Aww.
So she tells everybody she was bitten by a shark. Which is way better.
That's a good one. That's a great one. It's probably about time we should introduce our guest.
Yes, since it's been talking a while. So
yes.
Our guest for this episode is the CEO at Maximus IT, connecting Dynamics business. Yeah, I got those 2 words mixed up. Connecting Dynamics business and talent. Microsoft Business Applications MVP, a D365 Power Platform user, and blue hair enthusiast, Alison Mulligan. Welcome to the show, Alison.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Alison.
I'm very excited to be here. Very excited.
And you have a metal elbow as well, so
I do. I'll send you.
All 3 of us. We all have metal in our arms now.
Mine is my right arm also.
Yeah. So there we go. I feel united. I feel a real kind of camaraderie that we have here.
Is this fate? I think so.
I think it must be. Yeah, it was destined for this moment.
Yeah. All of our lives were just leading up to this point. We're about to create the perpetual motion machine on this.
This is a nexus event.
This is it. We're going to break the laws of physics. So, Alison, this is the first time I've actually had a chance to talk to you virtually. So that's great for that time.
I'm sorry.
But sorry. Your reputation, at least in the community, is for being like, I don't know if it's the best or how we want to describe it, but the most well-known, most appreciated, most respected recruiter, I guess I don't know if that's the word you use for what you do, but you help people with their careers. And so can you give us a quick little background of what you do, what you've been doing, and how you became an MVP?
I surely can, yeah. I've been working for nearly I was trying to work it out the other day. It's nearly 25 years. I think it's 23 or 24 years. I actually can't remember. As a technical recruiter. And I know I don't look old enough. It's fine. It's very kind of you to say so.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Because this is, I've been doing this for nearly 25 years, and this is my third career, if that gives you any concept of actually how old I am. So before that, I used to work for American Express for a bit, and when I worked there, this is like one of my best and worst origin stories ever, because it's really dull whilst being horrific at the same time. American Express had all of these accounts, like thousands and thousands of accounts around Europe, and people pay their American Express with a direct debit. And it used to be, this was a long time ago, this was like 30 odd years ago, and it used to be that you would fill out a cardboard form and detach it and mail it back, and then it had all your bank details, etc. And American Express had those forms in filing cabinets, in fireproof filing cabinets in an office, in alphabetical order of the surname of the person whose form it was. And somebody had the job, which became my job when I started, of rummaging through all of those filing cabinets in name order to find all of the direct debit forms that had today's date on them. So today is the 22nd, and it's a Friday. So on a Friday, you would also look for anything that had the 23 and the 24 on it, right? So, and after doing this for like 2 days and thinking, I don't really know if it's my place to say this or not. And I'm like 18 or I'm like 19 years of age or something like that. I went, I don't really feel like this is the best way of doing this. I mean, at the very least, could we file them in date order? So at least like just in a batch or something. And the other thing is somebody had to add up how much, because they were for a set amount, and you had to add up how much the direct debits were, and then somebody has to process them on the machine. And then, because everything in cashiers is checks and balances, right? And you have to check that the two made up. And I said, look, do you know what? You could do this on a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet would tell you which forms you have to put through today and how much for. And then you could put them through on the machine, and you would instantly know if it was right or not, because you would have the titles in front of you. So that sounds like a great idea. Why don't you go and do that? And in those days, you didn't have like buttons and stuff on Excel to do sums. You actually had to write the macros for it. So I wandered home on the train with 8 books about Excel that were thick, and I had to, and you couldn't, like, none of them made any sense, and the way they were written was so awful, so you had to like rummage through all the books to get to the bits that you wanted. But sure enough, like a couple of weeks later, I made this Excel spreadsheet, and everyone thought I was a hero, and then they took me through the town in this big chair, and everyone was cheering.
Confetti and ribbons and everything. Yeah, amazing.
Bands, cannons.
There's a statue of you as well, right?
Right, and so now my birthday is Alison Mulligan Day in the town every year. And they have parties.
That's an amazing story. I love that. I mean, it does go to show that Excel is literally the most widely used, best piece of software ever written. It's
the great leveler.
I stand by it. I stand by that.
So that was my first foray into it, and then I went to work at Yves Saint Laurent. Well, I worked for a company called Sanofi, and I was a market forecaster for Yves Saint Laurent and Van Cleef and Arpels and Oscar de la Renta for fragrance and cosmetics and stuff like that, which is tremendous fun. I used to get loads of free stuff, and it was fantastic. And we were on an old AS400 system, and we had something like 24,000 stock keeping units of different various products and stuff. And nobody, like, there was an old guy called Morris who was about 108 that knew every product number. And I said, like, he was supposed to retire 3 years ago, right? And eventually he's not going to be alive anymore. And when he goes, nobody knows anything. Nobody knows where anything is. Nobody knows what any of the part numbers are for anything. Like, because if anybody had a problem with anything, they'd be, I'll go and ask Morris, he'll know. And Morris knew the part numbers. So we're going to have to set up some kind of database for this. So I ended up building an Access database, which was horrific, just awful. But like, it was great. Like, it was revolutionary for what we were trying to do at the time. And this was a long time ago. But like, it was just like, if anybody asked me to do it again, no, I go, I'm sorry, no. Just burn
Something
everything.
is almost always better than nothing.
Yeah.
Something is almost always better than nothing.
It should have been an Excel spreadsheet.
Do you think that those kind of opportunities... Do those opportunities still exist? I mean, it's easy to think like, oh, back in the day there was low-hanging fruit. There was lots of these old traditional, completely paper-based processes. I mean, do they still exist? Do the people still have kind of those antiquated systems that someone could come in and go, you know what, this whole kind of Power Apps thing would just like revolutionize the way. Why don't we just make this a little bit easier? I mean,
I feel like it's a rhetorical question, Scott. I feel like you already know the answer to that, strangely enough. So, I mean, and that's the reason why I put this into my origin story, which does make me sound like a superhero. And then I moved into recruitment.
You are a superhero, isn't it?
Well,
no question.
I think so, but I'm not allowed to brag because it sounds a bit weird. So, but if you say it's fine, it's cool. And so then I moved into recruitment, and I've done technical recruitment. And I did all kinds of stuff through engineering and manufacturing. Then I got into doing ERP systems, and I originally started on Oracle Hyperion. I used to specialize in Oracle Hyperion, and then I kind of moved away from recruitment to do the operations at Maximus. Because our systems were dreadful. Like there's very much a theme here. Everywhere I go, systems are terrible. We can't carry on working like this. And so I said, like, why are we paying this guy called Steve like a ridiculous amount of money to upload a patch onto a server once or twice a year? Right? It seems bananas. Why don't we move everything onto a cloud? So we did that, they kind of did it once before I was doing operations, and it was dreadful, and it was this kind of quasi cloud setup that had this I can't talk about it because I have to lean against the Arga every time I think about it, and a wave of horror passes over me. But eventually in 2015 I moved us on to a full Microsoft estate, and I was speaking to the guys at Mercury, who we still use. We still have Mercury as our recruitment system because it's based on D365. And a guy called Mitchell Feldman, who ran a company called, I can't remember what they were called, Cloudermore or something like that at the time. And he said, perfectly simple, what you're doing is overly complicated. Just do this and everything will be fine. And it was like 1/10 of the price of what we were paying. And everything worked better. And you know how you just look at it and you go, I've messed something up there. That can't possibly be right. Like it's 1,000 times better, but it's like 1/10 of the cost. I've definitely done something wrong. And so like really nervously, I pushed the button on this and waited for for everything to fall over. And it didn't. And it just turned out to be the best thing ever. And I could see very quickly that Dynamics and the Microsoft estate and the infrastructure and the way that they were putting their systems together, and this was kind of pre-Power Platform in its current format, that was the future. And compared to what I knew about what Oracle and SAP were doing, they were dinosaurs. They were still light years behind any of this stuff. And as a now business owner, the difference that it makes to your business to be able to have this interconnectedness and to be able to build what you need to be able to do in your business is like nobody else is doing that. Everybody's got little components of it, but nobody has the whole thing, right? And that's why I'm so passionate about the Power Platform business applications. And I got involved with the community because I needed to learn this stuff. I was running our systems and I didn't know what I was doing. And I could see that there was so much more that we could do. And I just wanted to go to the UGs and learn and figure out how to build stuff. But then I got talking to everybody.
I remember when you started coming to the UGs in the UK, because there's always this slight suspicion with recruiters and UGs, right? Because you know what I mean. It's like
just
they come along and it's just like they just want to kind of get people's contact details and
they just want to scan my badge. I filled the files.
Yes, exactly. But then it's like, Alison, she really knows her stuff, and she's like really interested in all, which is completely anti the kind of the stereotypical recruiter that's just interested in scanning badges, like Daryl said. And it was like suddenly it was like, well, actually, no. In recruiting, you do need the Power Platform just in the same way as any other technology, and so it was awesome that when you started to come along and contribute to all of the various different conversations that we had. So that's an awesome origin story.
Thanks, I love it, but it's mine, and I would. But the best thing. The best thing is this community, the whole community around Dynamics and around Power Platform. Like, nowhere else could like a filthy recruiter such as myself, like, come into an environment with a bunch of techies, and I don't know anything, right? And that was, I think that made a difference, was the fact that I wasn't the only person that didn't know anything, because we're moving into an era of you don't have to be a hardcore dev to be able to build things with the Power Platform. And so the community welcomed me. I genuinely felt welcomed with open arms. And yet, like, in fairness, I think everybody was kind of side-eyeing and wondering if I was trying to steal their number and stuff. But I think people quite quickly realised that wasn't what I was about.
Just
well, I mean, I obviously do have all your numbers. You know, I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah. But it's like you say, you know, everyone can make a difference. I mean, not everyone wants to, right? But obviously the kind of person you are is that person who will notice a problem and notice, why are we doing it this way when it could be a whole lot better? I mean, some people are just willing to just do what they're told. And there's that Venn diagram that springs to mind. It's like a Japanese word. Ikigai, or is it where it's like there's the overlap between, you know, what you love to do. There we go. Yes, exactly. You've got a book on it. Perfect.
I have a book on it.
We didn't plan this, honestly.
No.
We did not plan this.
It was
So it's like the overlap between love, like what you love to do, what you're good at, and what there's like a market for, you know, people are willing to pay you for. I think, as I understand it, that's that kind of overlap. The Ikigai so you know, if you find yourself that you have a passion for trying to improve systems and improve processes and using technology to solve problems, then I guess that's going to be your Ikigai. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, you know, what profession you're in, it's going to naturally drive you towards that kind of problem solving with tech direction, which is basically sounds exactly where you've come from.
That's the essence of the Power Addicts, right? It's like a whole collection of raggy dolls that we've all like come from a situation where we just seen something not working and thought, like, there's, like, you know, Samet is the best origin story of them all, isn't it? He's got that situation at Heathrow where, like, you've got hundreds of security guys all trying to use one book, and he's like, this is bonkers, there has to be a better way of doing it, you know. And now he rules all of BA or something. I think he owns Virgin Airlines or something.
Something that's interesting in our community is that the leaders in our community are those 2 years ago that didn't know what the heck they were doing. I mean, because like everything's so new that everyone was in the same place. And so like you got people that, like, if you study real hard, like 3 months, you can learn more than most people already know, just because they've only had 2 years and they've just kind of, at least me, I haven't actively tried to pursue stuff. It's just, all right, I need to know this, I need to know that, and I kind of pick and choose. So it's amazing that you could be a leader very quickly in this community, as far as just your knowledge of what to do and how to do things.
And all of that information is out there as well. Like, it's there for everybody. Like, nobody is shy about sharing that information. Like, I've done a thing, I'm going to make a video or a blog post on it so other people can do that thing, right? And nobody's ring fencing their stuff, and that's amazing. I love that. And I love the discovery that we have. Like, I was really struggling to delete some old views and stuff off our D365, and I hadn't used XRM Toolbox because I thought it was a really devy kind of thing, and I didn't really understand it. And so I said, oh, no, let's go in and do that and just delete a load of stuff off. And I was like, oh, this is tremendous. Like, you know, it's the best thing ever. Awesome.
You kind of like had an Avengers Assemble moment in your home office.
Like a shaft of light came down.
Came down.
Striking your power pose right there.
Yeah.
So, Alison, as we think about tools and we think about people that are trying to get into maybe their first Dynamics role, or maybe they want to get to a next level in their role, what tools would you suggest that they would look to use or that are available for them to use?
Hey, can I just add to that? So there was somebody at the Summit last week who was on the tech desk at the back, like running the stream and everything. And as we left, you know, because it was Daryl's session. To be honest, I didn't understand half of it either. But you know, she was saying,
thanks, Scott. Thanks, Scott.
Anytime. But she was like, no, I understood most of that. So I was like, yeah, that's awesome. And she was like, oh yeah, I kind of used to do a bit of coding and stuff. And I think she was talking about like writing iOS apps. And I was saying, look, the Power Platform is one of those things that at the moment everything is changing so quickly that you can literally be ahead of your game by just being one page ahead in the book. You can really be, if you're willing to have that commitment and really go out and get it. So let's make it a little bit personal. So Alison, what would your advice be to her, to kind of move from the gig that she's doing now into doing something a little bit more Power Platform orientated?
Yeah, awesome question. So two things. Let me preface my answer by saying there has never been a better time to move into business applications, because the market is crazy out there right now. And because of that, and that sounds like it's geared towards the experienced guys. It's not, because the more demand there is in the market, the easier it is for you to get a learner job, right? A job with very little experience or no experience, and get trained up and get mentored by somebody really, really great, and get some fantastic experience. And because there's so much work out there, you'll be working on a lot of different projects rather than sitting on one old lumbering beast for several years, right? Because everything moves quite quickly. So that's the first thing that you need to know is don't be nervous about it. Like, you won't be out of work if you made that move now, like now and for the foreseeable future. You're not going to be out of work. There is so much demand, even in the pipeline, for the coming years. So I would probably do this like two ways. One is how you would get into Dynamics, because I treat that slightly differently from Power Platform, and how you would get into Power Platform. Getting into Power Platform is probably much easier, and I actually do a series of videos. They're literally all of my videos. If you've ever seen any of my content, it's 1 minute, because I have raging ADHD and I can't concentrate for so it's real, like, concentrated, like Marmite XO. Right?
I love your videos.
Do you?
I love those videos.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's like so focused.
It's very, and so the general gist of getting started with the Power Platform is all of the information is available to you, and that's the same for Dynamics as it is for Power Platform, right? So whether you're doing Dynamics or Power Platform, you can go on to Microsoft Docs and Learn, and you can learn pretty much everything that you need to know, right? Certainly to get you started, and you can do a certification. And if you follow one of the Microsoft training days, you'll even get a free voucher for an exam. I don't know if they do that in Canada and the US, but they absolutely do it here. If you join up they're normally across 2 days. It's normally like a morning and afternoon session across a day and a half or 2 days. And if you attend that training, which is very high level training, you get a free exam voucher to sit like a Pearson VUE exam, and hopefully get your certification. And the certifications run from like beginner to mid-level to experienced, to put it, because they're given clever names, but like I like go beginner, middle, and advanced. And also some of them are functionally, as in on the job oriented, and some of them are not. So if you don't have any of that on the job experience, you can still do some of those qualifications. So absolutely, the tools you can do is go on to Docs and Learn, follow the guided study plan that they have. It's detailed out for you in modules. It will tell you how long it will take you to complete that module. If, unlike me, you're a planner and you like to plan out how much time you're going to spend on it. There are people that run study groups. Here in the UK, you've got Julian Sharp and Sam Smith and a few other people that run regular study groups. I'm sure that you've got the same for the US and Canada. If you haven't, then maybe somebody needs to start that up. Maybe I need to start that. I don't know. Maybe I need to move out there, start a study group, and you can go through the modules, sit the exams, get a qualification, right? Because it's going to be 1,000 times easier for you to get employed in a role if you say, look, I'm genuinely interested in doing this, so much so I've taken my time to study this and do the exam and get qualified. So I at least have some basic knowledge in this area, right?
Yeah.
If you can't do that for any reason, it's easy to get started in the Power Platform by doing exactly the kind of stuff that I used to do, which is the reason why I include it in my origin story, because where you work, there is still someone using a spreadsheet. where you work, there is still somebody who manually sends out 100 emails once a month to customers for something or other that needs to be done, right? Whichever gym you go to, or whichever church group you're involved in, or any kind of parents group or social group for your kids or anything, all of those have regular things that happen, whether they're events that everybody has to be contacted about, or whether somebody has to collect monthly or weekly fees from people and keep a track of it. And somebody is doing all of that stuff on Excel or on the back of a fag packet, or God knows what they're doing with it. And all of those things are an opportunity for you to build something in Power Platform.
I love that. I think it's the opportunity, right? So that's the word you use. It's like, what opportunities are there now where you are to use the tech that you've just been learning about? So if you do go to Microsoft Learn in Docs and do an exam, it's like, okay, I've learned about this stuff, but the phrase is like, you use it or you lose it, right? So, but in contrast, if you look on LinkedIn, there's a whole load of articles that I keep seeing, like, about the great reshuffle, quit your job now and go and get a completely new job, which always seems to me is like a high risk way of dealing with the fact that you're maybe not wanting to do the job you're currently doing forever. It's like, would you ever recommend just simply quitting a job and then before you've gone and found another job? Or is it more this sort of intermediary, like, well, let's see if I can find an opportunity to not quit my day job, but see if I can invest in myself by implementing something where I am currently?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I would never recommend. It depends, right? To quote Louisa Freeze, the answer is it depends. If you're someone that doesn't want to work in your job so badly anymore that you cannot face going in on Monday morning, and we've all had jobs like that. I definitely have, where the dread used to sink in on sometime on Sunday afternoon, and then I'd stay up till 1 a.m. because I didn't want to go to sleep.
It was those boxes of cards from.
Well, quite, and if you're somebody that can afford to sit around without earning any money for an indeterminate period of time, which I don't think describes many of us, but some of us, then great, go ahead, quit your job with gay abandon, work out your notice, and make a plan and study something, and then go and do something else. If that's what works for you, great. I would suggest, if you have a job currently that you hate, that is not too demanding, you could fit that studying around what you're doing. I mean, the Power Platform stuff, you can do the in a days, right? You can do the app in a day, Power Automate in a day, Power Virtual Agents in a day, Power BI in a day. I mean, the one thing I would say about that is they'll teach you the kind of bones of how it works. If you want to be able to build an app to compare laptops to get an approval from your boss to buy one, then great, do an app in a day. But what will happen is you will suddenly realize when you try and do something in a real environment with real data that it's very different. But that's fine. But don't be afraid of it. You just have to understand, just go into it, right? Just have a crack at it, and that's why building stuff around what you know currently is the best way forward, because you kind of already understand the structure and the usage of what that problem is. And you probably already know where the data is and where it's coming from. And all you have to do is find the solutions for it. Bring the Power Platform to you. I would always say that it doesn't matter where you are. If you're not using Power Platform, if your current employer is not using Power Platform, bring the Power Platform to you. You can get a per app license for was it $20 a user per month or something like that, or just get what I did is a friend of mine runs a tutoring business, and she spends something like 60 hours 1 week out of every 6 weeks generating invoices, and then she spends the next 2 weeks chasing those people for money, right? So that's a whole 3 weeks out of every 6 weeks where she can't actually do her day job because she's doing that full time for 3 weeks. Wow. And she's also trying to tutor.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, it sounds awesome, because she's a teacher. She doesn't run a business. She's a teacher, right? And so she knows how to tutor and teach her, but she doesn't know how to build these business systems. And then she spends the other 3 weeks of that 6 weeks trying to chase the tutors to pay them. because they don't put in timesheets, or they don't tell her, what lessons they've delivered and which ones they haven't and stuff. Sometimes lessons get cancelled, blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, we can deal with all of this. So I literally, for the cost of £10 a month or whatever it is for an Office 365 license, to set up some lists, SharePoint. Well, they're not SharePoint lists, it's actually lists now, isn't it? Which I love, by the way, because it looks really groovy. I made one for all of the customers, made one for all of the tutors, and then just set up a few bits of Power Automate. So now all she has to do is press a button to create a CSV file, to go to Xero, to invoice everybody. It's set up on a Go cardless thing, so it automatically collects the money. If the money doesn't get collected, the parent gets told, sorry, you're not getting these lessons this week, kind of thing. And there's an automated system for, it's not quite built yet, but there will be, I should say, an automated system when the lesson's been delivered, that it asks for an approval from the tutor who says, yes, I gave the lesson, so they can get paid. And so that's immediately wiped out 80% of her work, which was just admin rubbish that she's spending her time doing. Why would you do it? So for the sake of £10 a month for an Office 365 license, it's done. And I didn't know how to do half of that stuff.
And it's the most life-sucking part of her work too, I bet.
Because it's not
I
what
bet it's
she
the
wants
most
to do.
life-sucking part of the work.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, no, that's not what you want to do.
She didn't go, oh, do you know what?
Do that.
She didn't go, do you know what? I love generating invoices and chasing people for money. I think I'll set up a tutoring business. And what happened?
Is she interested in how all the tech works and fits together? I mean, is that she's not interested in it? So okay, right.
So I'm looking forward
I guess
to
that's
the
the thing is
support
that we're yeah. Well, I was thinking, yeah, when something stops working because they've changed the Power Automate or something like that, and it's and that, I think that's always the total cost of ownership, right? That there's always, it's very easy to, in any IT system, this goes for enterprise system as well as little implementations where you're just solving a specific problem. It's the total cost of ownership. You do have to have a little bit of planning. Well, if something goes wrong, if something stops working, how do you deal with it? But less impact. That's what someone told me once, that if your business will lose money if something stops working, then that's when you have to treat it from a governance perspective differently.
Right.
Whereas if there's always a manual workaround, then that's like a way of a check and measure. How much governance do we have to put? How much enterprise diligence do we have to put around a system? It's will your business stop working? Will it fundamentally lose money if something's going to go? If it doesn't, then you can just go back to the way you did it before.
Right. So that's the tutor bit. Nobody loses money. Well, the tutors lose money, but the business doesn't lose money. If they don't put their time in, then that's on them, right? And I said to you, you have to give them the responsibility for that a little bit, because they know that you'll do it, and so they're just letting you do it, kind of thing. But the important bit is getting the money in. And why would you chase people for money? Just set up a Go cardless thing, automatic invoicing through Xero. Go cardless just goes to collect the money automatically out of their account, and everybody's happy. There's no messing around. Right? And I'm not special. I'm not a developer. I don't come from a technical background.
Oh, come on, you're special, Alison.
Well, I'm a little bit
that
special.
You're special.
Little bit.
Everyone that comes on the show is special.
Well, thank you.
There's only one person here with blue hair, and also red hair. So
it's also quite grey now. It's getting. I'm just gonna I'm letting it grow out to see how it pans out. But I'm not special. Anybody can do what I did, because basically all it was most of it relied on my ability to be able to Google stuff and find an answer, realistically. So, and having done some preliminary study on how to put Power Automate together or build Power Apps. So the Power Platform stuff is easy to get into, because you can get involved in that. If you can spend 10 quid on a license just to get a basic environment going, you can build some stuff and you can mess around with it. And you can automate bits of your life, do whatever, just to understand how stuff works together. The dynamic stuff is a little bit harder. I mean, now, because there are so many, particularly there's a lot of partners who are looking for people right now, and they are accepting of the fact that they're going to have to train people up. And you may not get a fantastic salary, so you might have to weigh up a little bit about how much salary you have to drop in order to get that first year or 18 months of experience. But if you go and work for a good partner where you're working on multiple projects on Dynamics, if you bang through 5, 6, 7 projects in 18 months, you will have learned pretty much as you need to know to be able to move your career forward. You'll be pretty experienced in that time. For taking a hit for 18 months is worth it if it starts you on your journey to a six-figure salary 5-10 years down the line, or going contracting, which is also pretty lucrative.
So that's a great point there. As I think about people that, some of them might be willing to start a little bit lower, and then how do they make that transition from, all right, I've been doing this for a year, I've been doing this for a year and a half, I'm now here, the market demands that I make this, which is way above what someone would normally give as like a cost of living adjustment, So how would you talk to or coach somebody that's like, well, I've been doing this for a year and a half. If I look out in the job market, I'm seeing tons of other jobs that I have no idea what the company's like, I have no idea what the benefits are like, but I do know it's substantially more than what I'm making in my base rate. How do you coach them as far as what do they do? Do they talk to their current employer? Do they talk to other employers? Like, how do you coach them through that?
I love this question. This is my favorite question. And it's also it gives rise to one of my biggest bugbears, right? So number one, you can poll, you've got access to all of the job postings on LinkedIn and Google Jobs and just in general on the internet, on Indeed and stuff, and you can see what those jobs are advertised at. So the first thing is, what a job is advertised at and what somebody actually gets hired at are not always the same thing, right? So if you're on 60 and you're seeing a lot of jobs for 65 or 70, that doesn't mean people are getting hired at 65 and 70. They're probably still getting hired at 60, 65. So, don't feel like you're missing out massively. If you're on 35 and you're seeing people advertising jobs with an equivalent, 2 years experience for 55, 60K, then yes, absolutely you need to have that conversation. And the first part of that conversation is always to talk to your current employer, right? If everything is fine where you are, like you don't hate anybody, you don't not get on with anybody, you don't have a fundamental problem with how they do things or what they do or any of that stuff, right? And you're otherwise happy, but you think you could probably earn some more money. Always keep your side of the street clean. And by that, I mean, have the conversation with your employer first and say, look, marketplace is pretty buoyant. I get approached by recruiters, and I guarantee you, if there's any partners watching this, your Dynamics guys and your Power Platform guys are getting at the minimum, absolute minimum, just on LinkedIn alone, at least one approach from recruiters per day, right? So, if you're not hugging them and giving them a cup of tea and making sure that they're all looked after, then probably now's the time. So, yeah, probably start getting in some.
I like that,
yeah. So, have a conversation with your current employer and say, look, I don't want to be that guy, but I do know that my skills are a bit more valuable now than they were when we first negotiated my package. How open are you to us moving this forward in some direction? And what you're going to have to do, like, they're not just going to say, yeah, let me double your salary overnight. They might, in fairness, but it's pretty unlikely. But what you're going to have to do is agree, and you would approach that conversation by showing how you deliver value, because unless you're delivering value in some way other than just doing the bare minimum, then nobody's really going to want to do an awful lot for you, right? So show how you're delivering value. Give some examples where you've gone above and beyond, where you've done a bit extra, where you've made life better for the team or for your manager or for the company, or you've just done a little something extra. And then say, I really want to move my career forward here. I really want to stay here. But people do change jobs every couple of years or so in this marketplace, particularly when it's as buoyant as it is. I would really like to stay here, but I also don't want to miss out on another 20 grand on my salary. So what can we do that works for both of us? You will agree some milestones. So then you'll open up a conversation where they'll say, okay, well, if you do X, Y, and Z, we'll give you A, B, and C, right? Which is fine. Everybody's happy. Everybody knows what they're doing. So you agree what you're going to do and by when, and then you commit it to writing. This is my biggest bugbear. You commit that to writing, because people have these conversations where they think they've agreed that if I do X, Y, and Z, they're going to give me A, B, and C. The best example I can give you is I'm speaking to a man. This is a theoretical situation because it doesn't really happen that much now. But let's say I'm speaking to a guy and he lives in Sussex, and there's a job in Manchester, which requires him to relocate. And I say, have you spoken to your wife about it? Right? He goes, yeah, I've spoken to her. She's fine with it. Do you know what he did? after the first phone call about the job in Manchester, he said to his wife, I spoke to a recruiter about a job in Manchester today. She said, oh, that sounds good. Nice. And now he thinks she's on board with moving to Manchester. She's hasn't even discussed, this hasn't even factored into any of her life at this point. Right. And so that's actually a fairly typical communication breakdown. So you always commit to writing, always just summarize it in an email to your manager and say, right, just so that I understood this correctly, if I do X, Y, and Z, you're going to give me A, B, and C. And I'm going to need you to reply to this. So don't let them get away with not replying to it, right? So if you haven't heard something in 7 days, then chase it up again and say, just looping back on this. Where are we on this? I want to make sure I've understood it correctly. And then take the initiative to put the measures in place and report to your manager the progress you're making. So if it's like you've got to get your PL 900 by whatever date, for example, then you say, right, I'm going to study this amount and get to these milestones in these next 3 months. And then, each month say, just to let you know, this is how I'm doing on getting my PL 900. Because it's not, your career is more important to you than it is to your manager. Right? It's your life, it's your career, it's your mortgage, it's your salary, it's your, future earnings, etc. He just wants to get the work done for the company. So, don't leave it on him.
That's why I love those HR systems that, have a review tracking form that has, a list of, these are my milestones, these are my goals for this particular period of time, and allows you to kind of track and you both your manager and yourself, you commit to them and you say, okay, yeah, I'm going to commit, and then you have like an interim review, which say, well, how are you getting on? And like, well, I haven't achieved this because I need some help on it. I love those, and I think, if your HR department doesn't have something like that, well, there's a pretty good example of maybe using Power Apps to
build a Power
kind of
App.
implement something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Build a Power App to manage the review process.
There's always somewhere. Yeah, no, exactly.
The one complaint I get the most in 20 odd years is, I agreed with my manager that I was going to do A, B, and C, and I've kept my side of the bargain, and they haven't kept their side of the bargain. And I'm like, great, did you have it confirmed in writing? Because it's really difficult for somebody. They're going to have to come. They're going to have to tell you that they're a bit of a dick.
You said,
right? If they've committed it to writing and then they don't do it, it's very clear that they haven't upheld their end of the bargain, and there's no way they can worm out of that. Like, they can say something else happened, blah, 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 but everybody really knows what the situation is. And what you've done is you've left the door open for you to go, well, look, I'm really sorry it's worked out that way, but now you can't be shocked that I've gone and had an interview over here where they were happy to give me this without it being conditional. And you've kept your side of the street clean. And like, nobody can be surprised then if you've gone out and found a job somewhere else, if you've upheld your half of the bargain and they haven't upheld theirs, right?
Yeah. Never burn your bridges, though.
Never burn your, but you've done it the right way. You said, I want to stay here.
Yeah.
Let's make a situation that works. And then you did the work. If you didn't do the work, then you don't get a pay rise. That's on you, right? But like, if you did the work and then they didn't, and you had that agreement in black and white nailed out between you, then you're not doing anything wrong if you go, do you know what? I've gone somewhere else, right? And that way,
no one can blame you.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
the takeaway there is for me is keeping it in writing, because I've had a coworker who had very, very good relationship with his boss. They were very trustworthy. They agreed on some things. And then his boss left the company and went somewhere else. New guy came in, and new guy knew nothing about what had been promised. And he's like, I'm sorry, I don't have the ability to do what this other guy promised to do. And I mean, that really hurts you as far as the relationship between you and the company. And so then you're really forced to it's hard to work. I would think it'd be very hard to continue working for a company where your trust like that's been violated.
100%.
Even though it's not necessarily the company's fault, But yes, having it in writing, hey, this is what they agreed to, would be huge.
Yeah, the thing that I've learned throughout my career is that a company is the people there. And I think that's, it's very easy to kind of think about an organization as it's just this sort of faceless company that owes you something, but really it's about the relationships you have at that company is the kind of the biggest most influential part. So if somebody changes and moves to a different company, if your boss changes or the management changes, it can really fundamentally change the whole workplace, your day-to-day job. So yeah, having that in writing is sort of a protection mechanism to prevent that from kind of going off the rails when those restructures happened. But yeah, it's that's really, really good advice, I think. And when somebody is looking at wanting to move up in their job, getting a bigger salary or something like that, that's one thing. But what would be your advice to say, well, how do you move to a different position in an organization? If you say, well, I want to get promoted, or I want to work in maybe a different department or something like that. Have you got any, quickly before, sort of lastly, is there any advice you can give to people?
Yeah, number one, it has to be feasible. Like the role that you're moving into has to be feasible and make sense for that company. So like I've been quite fortunate in those companies that I worked in, they were able to let me come off what I was doing and go on to do the system stuff that I wanted to do. I mean, there's a few examples of people doing that. Azure McFarlane in America, who's one of the funniest, most wonderful people you'll ever meet, worked for GSK, or still works for GSK as far as I know, and she was in production or something like that. She was production scheduling. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it was nothing to do with systems. She built a few Power Apps and a few things on Power Automate to make everybody's life easier. And then she said, actually, I don't want to do the production stuff anymore. I want to do that. And she'd already done it and then kind of moved. I mean, there was a bit of maneuvering that had to happen because I think it happened to coincide with some changes internally, but that's absolutely possible. So like if you find yourself in a situation where you go, hey, I work in customer service, but I don't really want to work in customer service. I'm really interested in making our customer service experience better by building this Power App. And if you went to a boss of your business and said I can make our customer experience better by doing this, I'm absolutely convinced of it. Like I think it would take a really hard person we don't live in those times anymore where they just say, no, you have to do exactly what it is that you're here to do, kind of thing. I think one of the hardest areas to move out of is sales, because good salespeople are always really valuable to the company. And so it's hard to move up, it's hard to move sideways, it's hard to move anywhere. But I think if you're in any other part of the business, if you can show how what you're going to do is going to deliver value, if you're going to say, look, you can stop manually invoicing 250 parents every month, I can build you a piece of power. Just do it. I mean, realistically, if you just did it and it took you a few hours of your time to do it and you could show the benefit of it, then that's going to go a long way, right? And then quite often people need to be led by the nose a bit about like how much this stuff is going to make a difference for their business. But it isn't always going to be possible. It's not always going to be possible, and you may have to change jobs. But like, if you can find an opportunity to bring maybe Power Platform more than Dynamics, but if you can find an opportunity to bring it in where you are, then you stand a much better chance of like being able to carve that out as a career path in your current employer, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And going full circle to what we first started talking about, now is the time is right, because like especially with Dataverse for Teams, right?
Yes.
These things they're new, they're exciting opportunities for things that you just could not do before. You'd had to have a conversation about licensing and the pay, but now it's just there. It's like if you've got a Teams license, you can just do it.
100%.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so you can show people what your Ikigai is, rather than having to explain to people why. So look, this is my passion for building this stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And the new search functionality on Dynamics just I've only just upgraded on now. We've only just got like the new search bar thing on now because we're on an ISP solution. So, and it's just, love it. So, and just to circle back to the thing that you mentioned about the company as the people that you work with, because I like to bring things back round full circle. And then we're going to spend the next 20 minutes to take us over the hour for Daryl about Ikigai and words in foreign languages that don't have an English equivalent. So the company is the people that work in it, right? And so if you can forge good relationships with other people in departments that are more in line with the area that you want to work in, saying, I'm just interested. Have you guys thought about Power Apps at all? What are you guys doing there? I'm really interested in it. That's another way of being able to get to move internally, is to talk to the people in your target areas and forge relationships with them and find out what's going on and if there's opportunities coming up in those areas as well.
Someone a long time ago gave me the advice, saying, if you want to work in a department that you're not currently working in, find someone in there and ask them to be your mentor.
Yes.
Not in any kind of, like formal capacity, but just say, could you mentor me, as a personal favor? And usually people firstly are like, wow, you think that much of me that you want me to, they're like, well, of course. Yeah, no, exactly. So they then usually will never not say no, but also it means that you can then, like you say, start those relationships, start to kind of have connections with different parts of the company and broaden your own understanding, your own horizons, etc. And mentoring is one of those things that really is just not done enough, I think, these days. It's kind of like a forgotten art. The mentoring kind of concept is something that was quite big, 30, 40 years ago, but somehow has lost its importance in the world.
That really annoys me, and the biggest reason that annoys me is because if you join a company and you get mentored by somebody, then you naturally expect to mentor other people as you progress through that company. And if it doesn't start with the people that join the organization, then it just dies out. And and you might say, well, people move in 2 years, but they still have that expectation when they go to other companies. If everybody was doing it, then everybody would carry on doing it, because there would be an expectation that you have to mentor people as part of your job. It's bonkers that we don't do that. Yeah. Absolutely bonkers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Alison, I really appreciate the time that you spent with us on your Friday evening. I mean, it's the weekend for you. You're chatting with two geeks from across the pond. So, I mean.
Well, I am very popular, Daryl, and I did have a lot of offers this evening.
We're honoured that you chose us.
Yes, we're honoured. We're.
I genuinely really appreciate you asking me to join you. I very much appreciate that, and it was good fun. We could have done this for hours, couldn't we?
We could have. We do, yeah. In fact, if anyone's listening, our three listeners, we know we have three listeners now.
So our three listeners,
4. We've actually been. Wow, yeah, that's amazing. But this was like a 4-hour. It has been edited down, so it's like this is the abridged version, right? If you're looking at it.
I just want to end. I just want to end by saying my favorite word, Ikigai style word, is Kummerspeck, which is German for grief bacon, which is the weight you put on when you feel sad because you've eaten too much. Yeah, so that's my little nugget.
I can relate to that one, I have to say.
Me too.
This is a lot better than grief bacon. Yeah. I must have done that when I was on my bacon diet last year. I had bacon straight for a whole week. It was delicious.
Oh, your sodium levels.
I lost like 2 pounds.
Well,
yeah.
Are you wearing your vegan T-shirt, Alison?
Yes.
Are you wearing your?
Yes.
You are. Yes, you are wearing your vegan T-shirt. Yes.
You can talk about bacon. I'm not sensitive.
Well, I mean, is that T-shirt like that because there's a stereotype of all vegans that the first thing they tell you is that they're vegan? If you meet them, it's like, oh, by the way, I'm vegan. It's like is that the stereotype that's playing too? I'm not.
I would probably yes. You can blame Carl Cookson for that. He sent me this T-shirt, so and it's now my favorite. Previously, my previous favorite was the air fryer T-shirt Megan sent me, but which is actually, I would like to say I'm known more for air frying things than I am for being vegan. But I would like to think I don't introduce myself as being
air frying
vegan.
Is delicious.
Air frying is delicious. I air fried some sausages, not meat ones, fake sausages.
Well, I have to thank April Dunham actually for sending me this powerful Devs T-shirt.
Oh, that is a beaut.
This is the section of the show that I thank people for sending me stuff.
Is it?
It seems to be becoming a regular.
If I thank April Dunham, well, she sent me.
Thank you, April. If you,
I would also. I'm a size medium. Thanks, April.
Yeah, you can give it a go.
Well, Alison, if any of our four listeners now, has any additional questions for you, maybe they are looking for a recruiter, maybe they have questions on whether the recruiter they're working with is someone they should be working with, or anything along those lines, how can our listeners get a hold of you?
I'm always happy for anyone to get hold of me. You can find me on Twitter, amulligan365, or you can find me on LinkedIn as Alison Mulligan, and probably one of those two routes is the best way to get hold of me, I would say. And you don't have to be looking for a job to talk to me about career options. I will happily help you negotiate situations in your current job. I don't always have to get paid to give out advice. Is my motto. So don't be afraid
Okay.
to reach out and make friends with me. I'm very friendly. I don't bite, mostly
Yeah.
because I'm vegan.
Well, Scott, that's how our listeners get a hold of Alison. How can our listeners get a hold of us?
Well, Daryl, yes, sorry. That's a... yes, you can get hold of us by sending us an
T-shirt. Don't worry, I don't bite. I'm vegan. That's a lot better than hello. I'm
actually,
vegan.
yes.
I think that's better. But anyway,
Cole's rubbish. I'll have words.
You could email us at cast@xrmtoolbox.com, or you can get hold of us on Twitter or LinkedIn at xrmtoolcast, and we would love to hear from you.
Awesome. Alison, good talking to you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much
Alison,
for
so
having
much.
me. Take care. Love to you both.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
This has been the XRM Toolcast with Jonas Rapp and Daryl Labar. If you have any questions for Jonas or I, or suggestions for future episodes, please send them to cast@xrmtoolbox.com or tweet to XRM Toolcast.